The James Show Podcast.
Man, I'm really enjoying this WNBA situation. This is so great. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Remember, Donald Trump's coming to town September 10th. September 9th and 10th are the Republican midterm convention here at the American Airlines Center, downtown Dallas. We will be in the building. I mean, technically, we're on the property already, but we will be where the actual convention is happening in the next building over during those 2 days. So on September 9th and 10th, WBAP, just lock it in. All right, so this WNBA story just keeps getting better and better because when the whole trans thing sort of popped off years ago, I think the era started when Bruce became Caitlyn. Can we all agree with that? Does that sound... We just got to put a boundary. We've got to delineate somewhere. Because for all of your life, up until the last few years, no one claimed men can change into women and women can change into men and men can have babies and a lot of stuff that's very mainstream now. There were no elected Democrats that were saying that in the 90s or in the early 2000s. But somehow the Overton window has shifted. And this is something that you can't lose this argument. This isn't an issue that's going to be a problem for very long, because you and I both thought when we saw the transition from whenever the Caitlyn Jenner transition happened to we got to this point today in the WNBA situation, you and I both knew this entire time this whole narrative can just be flipped over if one guy decides to declare as a woman that, a former NBA player decides to declare as a woman, or it could be someone who's just really good in college, or hell, it could really just be maybe most athletic guys in their 20s, most basketball males in their 20s. If one guy just decides to take advantage of the very generous and well-intended policies of the WNBA, well, then this whole thing's going to be thrown on its head. The whole idea that there's no biological noticeable real difference. The gender is just a social construct. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So I think part of the reason I enjoy this and you enjoy this so much is this was wholly predictable and foreseen. And you knew this was going to happen on a long enough time scale. You were just waiting for it to reach a head. Here we are. Inez Freedom and Royce White have both declared for the WNBA draft. Here's Royce.
Right now, I'm just having a blast in my feminine era. I never thought that I was a woman.
Oh, stop it. All right. All right. Now, let's fast forward to the new part today. The back and forth on this is real interesting because the people I am playing for you are not right wingers. These are people within the left wing. They are within the superset of Team Blue. I'm going to start with Stephen A. Smith. Who's saying, listen, this whole thing that's going on right now, this is not hatred. This is not an anti-trans move. This is people just playing by the rules that you claim to support.
So you see what Enes Kanter had to say, right? You see how much of a mess this is becoming, right? And everybody want to act like, oh my goodness, we don't want to hate on trans. We don't want to hate on trans folks. That's not what that's about. Anybody who's hating on them should be ashamed of themselves. The WNBA, the NBA, and everybody else in between is absolutely right when they talk about not violating people's civil rights and liberties, not being hateful, not engaging in hate in any way, shape, form, or fashion, whether verbally, physically, or otherwise. We all know that. But what Enes Kanter is pointing to is about competition. So for somebody to transition from male to female, and for folks to act like it would be okay for them to participate in the WNBA is ridiculous. And when you have athletes from the WNBA saying that they're looking out for and speaking up on behalf of girls, because it would clearly be an unfair advantage to a trans athlete over people born female, what's the problem? What's the problem? We got to have common sense. And yes, Enes Kanter is going a bit too far, but he's right to do so to make a point. And Royce White, former NBA player, now a conservative pundit, he's right too because he's trying to make a point. Certain things are beyond ridiculous, and you got to call it out just to send the message. Do you get it now? Are you sure you want to continue this subject? Are you sure you want to continue on this path? Sure you don't want to be political pawns? Fine. Then understand that the WNBA is for girls and people born female, and leave it at that. And stop acting like you don't know. Otherwise, there'll be a lot more Enes Kanters.
And the thing that makes all of us just want to pound our head against a brick wall is if it's all a social construct, if it doesn't matter and you're all open and welcoming to anybody, then why does the WNBA exist? Why is it even a thing? And good, proper Texas football fans will most certainly remember the name Emmanuel Acho. He was a guy that actually went to high school here in the Dallas area, in Dallas. And then he had an amazing career with the Texas Longhorns. And then he did a few years in the NFL. I don't remember much of his name being called in the NFL. But he's a smart fella, too. He was one of these guys that was like a first-team all-academic selection 3 times. So it's awesome to see when guys like that have a leg injury and they get blown out of the NFL, that they turn and they do broadcasting. Because some of these guys are smart. We the stereotype of the big dumb jock, there's a ring of truth into that. But there's some exceptional brains that break the trend. Like Richard Sherman, remember that guy? Went to Stanford. He's hilarious on a microphone. He's no dummy. So when he talks about very sensitive topics like this that are kind of abrasive to the wrong people, kind of political, kind of sports, I thought you would like hearing his reaction to what's going on with the WNBA and the trans stuff. But before we get to that, let me play you a couple other guys that you probably heard of as well. Stephen A. Smith was making the case that his stance on the WNBA allowing trans players doesn't come from a place of hatred. Let me do a funny one before I do the serious one. Lonzo Ball and another guy I didn't recognize. Professional basketball players who were having the discussion at what age, like how far back could you go and you would still be better than WNBA players? Of course, because of course they're better than WNBA players now. They're professional basketball players. What about when they were in college? What about when they were in high school? What about when they were a freshman in high school? What about when they were in 8th grade? So check this out. Lonzo Ball and other guy.
And I mean this as respectfully as possible. But 9th grade Lonzo Ball in the WNBA is going crazy. All right. Because look, in 9th grade, I'm over 6 feet and I'm dunking. Like, I'm coming through like, no girl in the WNBA is doing that. I'm going back door, throw it up. Like, I'm looking like Jordan out there. So I'm going to just say, and I mean this so respectfully.
So great senior.
Middle school down, I give it to the WNBA.
I'm gonna go probably 8th grade because look, bro, I have real experience doing this because I played. My sisters went to University of Missouri and I was still a young dude, and they had me playing like on the scout team, and they had a few WNBA players on the team like Sophie Cunningham and a couple others, and I think I was like in the 7th or 8th grade going dumb. I'm talking about like, so I have real life experience.
It's not physically
just
fair, bro.
It's just a difference, man, and I wish this would stop being a conversation because it should be common sense. But like, it's just not. But I appreciate, common sense. I feel like sometimes that's lost a little bit.
Okay, now that we have the cloud of all this around, all this sensitivity, all this social justice, all this wokeism, remember in the background, the Caitlin Clark controversy is still a vital part of that context. Now, that is a racism issue, not a trans issue, not an LGBT rainbow flag attack. This is a racism issue. So very sensitive subjects over here. And, as much as we talk about the WNBA, it's never about basketball. But in the latest of that context, because these topics are all getting mixed together. And what we're really turning into is how woke can this league be without running off half its fans? So Emmanuel Acho was talking about a lady named Carrington who did a flagrant foul against Sophie Cunningham, the tall blonde girl that did the pointing meme. You've seen the 1,000 Sophie Cunningham pointing memes. I love that one. Well, there's a flagrant foul done on her where she was going up for a layup. She was going to make it. And instead of giving her the easy layup, it's not crazy to foul somebody, but you have to make it look like you're going for the ball. You can't smack them in the face. And if you do just not even try and go for the ball and you just explicitly smack somebody in the face, if they start bleeding out of their mouth, it's pretty reasonable you're going to get a flagrant. In fact, you're going to get the ejection level of flagrant foul, and that's what happened. She immediately went to the locker room and tweeted out, "White privilege." And you're going to love Emmanuel Acho's response to that.
Dejanay Carrington made a basketball play, and the refs made a basketball ruling. So can we stick to basketball for a moment? Basketball play. She was attempting to go for the ball. At least she said so. She missed, and she missed egregiously. She missed, and she flagrantly hit Sophie Cunningham in the head. Now, flagrant 2, by definition, if you hit somebody with so much force that it could lead to injury, and if it doesn't appear to be a play on the ball. Though Dejanay's intention was to play the ball, her impact was all on Sophie Cunningham's head. So as a result, the refs made the right call. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, have we seen Sophie Cunningham aggressively foul an individual before and not get thrown out of the game? Sure. Have we seen Caitlin Clark aggressively foul an individual by hitting them in the head and not get out of the game? Absolutely. You cannot be ignorant to that truth. But if we are paying attention to what Dejanay Carrington did to Sophie Cunningham, it was not a race-based decision. And to call that a white privilege-based foul is to completely undermine the term of white privilege and to also completely ignore the rules in basketball. You hit her in the head, you drew blood, you didn't connect with the ball at all whatsoever. So to me, it was just very ignorant and to some degree asinine by Dejanay Carrington to suggest that that call was based on white privilege. Have we seen examples of white players make that same foul and get away with it? Yes. Have we seen examples of black players make that same foul and get away with it? Yes. There was no white privilege involved in that specific call. Dejanay, you hit her in the head and you drew blood. It was a flagrant 2. You should have been ejected. No more, no less.
I'm really starting to like that guy. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Isn't it crazy that the WNBA has all these controversies, all these non-basketball controversies? Does the NBA? What's the NBA's biggest controversy right now? Analytics, too many three-pointers, too many dunks, not enough mid-range shots. They're not talking about trans. They're not talking about gays. They're not talking about race. They're not smacking each other in the face and drawing blood and accusing. It's fantastic to watch, isn't it? Aren't you kind of enjoying this maybe a little too much? But if you're wondering where all your tax money's going, this is it. WFAA did a great summary this morning.
Dallas leaders are considering its proposed budget right now. It would include several cuts to close a $50 million budget shortfall. Thank you for joining us this midday. I'm Kara Sewell. The plan would include cutting 300 jobs, nearly 300 jobs. And Natalie Haddad joining us in the newsroom with what leaders have discussed so far. There is a lot to unpack.
A lot to unpack. Dallas is facing a budget shortfall, as we've mentioned, and residents could feel the impact through fewer hours and programs at places like libraries and recreation centers. Right now, Dallas City Council is getting a closer look at the proposed budget for next year as we speak and where the city plans to cut costs. The proposed $5.6 billion budget would be the largest in Dallas history, but city leaders are still looking for ways to close a projected $51 million shortfall. The plan calls for eliminating nearly 300 positions, though many of those positions are vacant. It also calls for reorganizing departments and potentially shifting some city services to private companies. And those job cuts and restructuring alone are expected to save about $17 million.
Regrettably, despite the efforts, this budget does impact our workforce. And I understand that this news brings uncertainty. And what I want you to hear from me is that I care deeply about each of you.
Additionally, the proposal would reduce hours and programs at some libraries and other facilities, lower the minimum hourly wage for some custodial and temporary workers, also eliminate a healthcare copay program for city employees. And while the proposed property tax rate would drop slightly, some city service fees could go up. City leaders say growing pension payments and rising costs for police, fire, and other services are putting more pressure on this budget. City Council still meeting and discussing the proposal. Again, as we speak, this is not the final budget. Council members can still make changes before a final vote scheduled for September 16th.
All right, so whenever the bond appears on your ballot, number one, if it is going to appear on your ballot, say no. Just can we make the default position on all bonds that you're allowed to vote on? Just make your default position No, because what they're really asking, do you want to raise your own taxes? They just passed a couple of giant bonds last November. So what are we doing here? We can't balance the budget. We can't stop taking on new debt. We can't make any cuts. And we don't have a whole lot of people in city council even trying or talking about it or even taking it serious. Did you know that there's a Dallas version of Doge? There's a Department of Government Efficiency-esque project that's going on in City Hall right now. And they actually had to report back to the City Hall earlier this week. I didn't get this guy's name, but this was being passed around. The HR offices in the city, do you know they're empty? Because this is coming up because hundreds and hundreds of new staff members have been added to the departments at City Hall over the last 6 to 10 years. And the city hasn't grown. The city hasn't gotten significantly bigger. We haven't added any geography. We didn't annex any suburbs. So why do we get almost a 50% increase in the number of full-time employees in City Hall? And what does that mean if we have almost 50% more employees in City Hall over the last few years, but the offices are remaining empty? What's really going on?
To discuss further, I've been down to human resource a few times. Not a lot, but a few. And I went down there, to be honest with you, because Chair Mendelson said no one is at work. So I actually went down there a few times. And guess what? One at work. And then I sat here and listened to the HR director advocate and say, we need to give incentives for people to not come to work and pretty much work on the COVID schedule. That was concerning to me. So I'm putting it in my words, but that's pretty much what you said. If you go look at the video, it's out there. Her words was an incentive when you're hiring people. So when I'm looking at the job responsibility and what we're expecting, my personal view, and just me, I'm 1 out of 15. I believe people should come to work.
That seems like a no-brainer. He mentioned in there, Karen Mendelson had told him that many of the departments have empty offices. This was her in a different city council hearing this week.
So that was something that just sort of came naturally, that hybrid approach.
Every time I've been to your department, not a single person's been there. I'm just going to tell you that's the truth.
I did not know that you had ever visited us.
I know, because you weren't there.
I know you weren't there. How would you know if I came to visit? You weren't there. Your staff isn't there. We have a whole, what is that, the data collection department? Do we even really need that? Come to work. Make them all come to work tomorrow. Fire half of them and tell the rest of them to figure it out. The idea that we can't cut the budget in Dallas City Hall, well, you have the largest amount of revenue the city's ever had. It can't keep growing forever. I bet you I could find some things to cut. I would cut all them damn libraries. I would cut out all the DART. I'd cut out all the social programs, all the theaters, all the WNBA practice facilities, all the renovations, the convention center. We wouldn't be doing any of that garbage. I could cut that thing by 75%. And y'all wouldn't even notice. Gary in Granbury, you're on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP.
Yeah, this isn't only a Dallas problem. This is a United States problem.
Amen.
If you look, like the average, you could take the average number of houses in any county and look at the bond issues, and I will guarantee you the average house has between $250,000 and $500,000 worth of bonds against each property. So you will never own your home. You will be a slave. There is no such thing as home ownership as long as we have property taxes. We need to go to a sales tax. And the other thing is, if you look what's happening in the bond market, a lot of these municipalities and these school districts and these independent school districts with all these bond issues, they're going to go flat broke. And when they do, you've not seen economic pain because all your pensioners are holding these worthless bonds for crap that we didn't need. I'll give you an example.
Well, I've got 20 seconds.
Okay. If you look, like there's some schools out in West Texas that have 134 different students only.
Uh-huh.
They've got a $10 million stadium. They've got 15 golf simulators. They got a baseball stadium that'll hold more people than 5 of.
Yeah, that's my 20 seconds, Gary. That's Gary and Granberry. I wish I had more time because I really liked where that was going. We spent the entire Cold War fighting against communism and socialism, and now the emergent, almost dominant faction of one of our two major parties is the socialist. That almost sounds like a joke or a setup, but we've got them. We've got them. We've got Francesca Hong, who's anti-Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving is also a time that's incredibly painful for many people in our communities. And so, I think I wanted to make sure that people understood that there are multiple views, but views can evolve.
Yeah, if Thanksgiving's painful for you, newsflash, your family sucks. How about that? Everyone else enjoys it. Hey, how about we set aside a day to give thanks for the abundance that God has given us? They're like, no, that sounds terrible. No. Sounds a little too capitalist, colonial, white supremacist to me. You have El Sayed, who is the Democrat nominee, just won his primary against a very funny Haley Stevens. I wish she was going to stick around with us. He's a out-and-out Islamist. He's like Mamdani, a socialist Islamist. Like one of the worst forms of governance, it would be an Islamic theocracy based on socialism. It's what they have in Iran right now. That's what he wants for us. And I'm telling you that it's not me being hyperbolic. But he has the problem of a whole lifetime of social media posts where he's just hating on. This guy does not like Jews. There are so many anti-Israel posts. There are so many free Palestine posts. There are so many pro-Gaza and pro-Hamas posts. Any rational person would come away from that hellscape of a social media timeline and be like, man, this fellow might be just a little bit anti-Semitic. Well, he's got to win an election, and that's not going to work. So check out this interview he did over the weekend. Listen to this attempt to draw a line, to bifurcate this very obvious issue here. He's going to say at the same time, he loves Jews. He just hates Israel. You see the difference? Israel bad. Jews good. Israel bad. Yes, he loves Jews. It's just the only state that is Jewish he hates. Yes, the people that are committing the genocide against the Palestinians. Yes, he loves those. This doesn't make any sense, but God, I enjoy watching this.
I love and revere Judaism and the Jewish people. I believe they're a light unto the world. I grew up in a community that had a large Jewish population. I was so grateful to get to be invited to Seder and to Shul and to Bar and Bat mitzvahs. I'm really honored for what I learned and got to share with my Jewish sisters and brothers. But they are not the same as AIPAC in Israel. AIPAC is an organization that spent, $30 million to beat me so that they could have one more vote in the U.S. Senate to guarantee that our taxpayer dollars would be sent abroad to subsidize a foreign government's military to do the worst things: genocide, apartheid, take us into wars we have no business fighting.
Yeah, the people that are committing a genocide and apartheid, yeah, I absolutely love them. Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't. You have the co-chair of the DSA having an economics discussion. So they hate Thanksgiving, they hate Israel, they hate the Jews, and they want to tax the hell out of the rich. What does that mean? I don't know. You just have to engender hatred toward a group of people based solely on their success in order for the government to have permission from the electorate to go steal from them, I think is as deep as the thought process goes.
But we do believe in taxing the hell out of millionaires. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what does taxing the hell out of them mean?
I don't have like a solid, but I think.
But shouldn't you? I mean, if you're the co-chair of the DSA, shouldn't you be more specific than just taxing the hell out of something? What exactly do you mean?
So again, it's democracy, right? And we have to look at what we need to spend and what we need. We don't want to depend on the existence of millionaires because that means people are still getting exploited. So yeah, we need to look at what we need to pay for in the interim, what sort of tax base we need for that to happen, and then and build from there.
Yes. We don't think millionaires should exist, but we want our entire revenue stream of taxation to be based on them. Again, it's the snake eating its own tail. And I think this only works or primarily works on younger people because you and I grew up in a time where all of these people had all of their ideas actually in power, and it was called the Soviet Union. And we saw how terrible it worked. Ronald Reagan had a great joke that made a good point.
And only 1 out of 7 families in the Soviet Union own automobiles. There's a 10-year wait. And you go through quite a process when you're ready to buy, and then you put up the money in advance. And this happened to a fellow, and this is their story that they tell, this joke, that this man, he laid down his money, and then the fellow that was in charge said to him, okay, come back in 10 years and get your car. And he said, morning or afternoon? And the fellow behind the counter said, well, 10 years from now, what difference does it make? And he said, well, the plumber's coming in the morning.
Zach Bryan is coming to AT&T Stadium August 22nd. Special guest Ryan Bingham and the Texas Gentlemen. Get tickets at zachbryan.com, or you can listen to the WBAP Morning Show all week to find out how you can win a pair of tickets from them. All right, that's going to about do it for the James Show today. If you need more James Show action, go find the James Show podcast. And also, if you see any of my videos and clips and highlights and social media posts, do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, hit share. Help me spread the message there. And then also, if you don't mind getting into the fight in the comment section, that's always fun. And you might get read on the show. So go find the James Show and all the good little clips I have on social media as well. Stay put. The great one, Mark Levin's coming up next. I'm James Parker, and this has been The James Show on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.